Preparing for a successful podcast takes more than just hitting the record button. A well-prepared podcast can attract and retain listeners, while an unprepared one can deter them. Here are some key steps to take to ensure your podcast is ready for success. The first step in preparing for a successful podcast is to define your target audience. Your target audience should be defined by demographics such as age, gender, location, and interests. Knowing your target audience will help you create content that appeals to them and attract more listeners. The second step is to create a content plan. Your content plan should include the topics you will cover, the format of your episodes, such as interviews, solo episodes, or roundtable discussions, and the frequency of your episodes. Having a clear content plan will help you stay on track and ensure your podcast stays relevant to your target audience. The third step is to invest in good equipment. Podcasting equipment doesn't have to be expensive, but investing in a good microphone and headphones is essential for producing a professional-sounding podcast. It's also important to have a quiet and well-lit recording space to minimize background noise and distractions. The fourth step is to create a professional-looking podcast cover art. The cover art is the first thing listeners see when they come across your podcast, and it can make or break their decision to listen to it. Make sure your cover art is high quality, visually appealing, and representative of your podcast's content. The fifth step is to promote your podcast. Podcasts are not a build it, and they will come type of medium. You need to actively promote your podcast in order to attract listeners. Use social media, email, and other marketing channels to promote your podcast and reach new listeners. The sixth step is to have a website for your podcast. A website will give your podcast credibility, and it's a great place to host your episodes, show notes, and other information about your podcast. The seventh step is to create show notes or transcriptions of your episodes. Show notes and transcriptions are great tools to help listeners find information about your podcast and episodes. They also help with SEO and make your podcast more accessible to people with hearing impairments. The eighth step is to have a strong call to action at the end of episodes. A call to action can be anything from asking listeners to rate and review your podcast, to signing up for your newsletter or promoting your merchandise. A strong call to action can help to increase engagement and grow your audience. The ninth step is to have guests on your podcast. Having guests on your podcast can help to increase the diversity of your content and attract new listeners who are interested in your guests. Make sure to research your guests and prepare good questions to ask them. The 10th step is to measure the success of your podcast. Without tracking metrics such as downloads, listenership, and engagement, it can be difficult to know what's working and what's not. Use tools such as Google Analytics and Apple Podcasts Connect to track your podcast's performance and make data-driven decisions. By following these steps, you'll be well on your way to creating a successful podcast. Remember to define your target audience, create a content plan, invest in good equipment, create a professional-looking cover art, promote your podcast, have a website, create show notes and transcriptions. Have a strong call to action, have guests, and measure your success. With the right preparation, your podcast can attract and retain listeners and become a success.